Hi, I'm Paul Kyogan from GK Tuition, and in this video I want to go through a Leaving Cert Higher Level exam question. Now the question I've chosen to go through is 2016 Paper 1 Question 7 Part B. In this question we're told that an inflated ball is kicked from the origin, so it's kicked from the point 0, 0, and that the function f of x equals minus x squared plus 10x describes the flight of the ball. So I've drawn a rough sketch of what that graph might look like. You have to recognize that if there's a minus in front of your x squared, then it's an N shape. So when you kick the ball, it's going to go up and it's going to come down. I'm told that x and f of x are measured in meters. So this represents, so my peak here would represent the maximum height of the ball, whereas the value over here would represent how far the ball is away when it lands. I'm asked to find the values of x for which the ball is on the ground. So what are the values of x for which the ball is on the ground? So when the ball is on the ground, you should recognize that means that f of x is equal to 0. Or in other words, my y value is 0. So when the ball is on the ground, my y value must be 0. Which means my function becomes minus x squared plus 10x is equal to 0. And now I can just factorize this. So all I can do with this is take out the common term. So if I factorize out x, I'm left with minus x plus 10. So in order to solve this, to get the 2 points where this graph would cross the x-axis, I let the first bracket, or I let my x here equal to 0. So my first answer is just that x is 0 meters. And to get my second value, I let minus x plus 10 equal to 0. So I can say that minus x plus 10 equals 0. So if I subtract 10 from both sides, minus x equals minus 10, which means that x is equal to 10 meters. So the ball is kicked from point 0, 0, and it lands roughly 10 meters away. So that's the answer to the first part of the question. And now B part 2 is directly related to this. For the second part of this question, we're asked to find the average height of the ball above the ground from when it is kicked until when it lands. Okay, so you should recognize that this is an average value question. And there's a formula to get the average value over a certain period in our integration. So in this case, this is an integration question. Your formula for average value is 1 over b minus a times the integral from b to a of your function. So to get the average value, the average height of the ball above the ground from 0 to 10, I'm going to sub into my average value, where the function I sub in is minus x squared plus 10x, and the limits I use are going to be 10 and 0. So my b will be 10 and my a will be 0. So now I can sub in, and the value I get will be the average value above the ground. So if I sub in here, I get 1 over b minus a, which is 1 over 10 minus 0, times the integral from 10 to 0 of f of x, which is minus x squared plus 10x. And afterwards then we put in a dx just to symbolize that we're going to integrate. Now in the next line we can actually integrate. So my fraction here will just become 1/10, and when I'm integrating I'm now going to introduce square brackets. So I'm going to put in square brackets around it to symbolize that I've now integrated. The integral of minus x squared, well, I increase the power of x by 1, so it becomes minus x to the power of 3, and then I divide by the new power. So I'm going to divide by 3. The integral of 10x, well, I increase the power of x by 1, so it becomes x to the power of 2, and then I divide by the new power, so I divide by 2. And because there's limits, I don't have to add in a plus c. The reason I have square brackets around this is because I have limits outside it, and I'm going to have to introduce my limits outside it. Okay, so now if you want to pause the video and maybe take that down, I'm going to apply my limits, but I'm going to do it from the top of the board again. Okay, so we left the last frame off at this point. I had 1/10 times minus x cubed over 3, and notice that I've divided my 2 into my 10, and I now have 5x squared. My limits are 10 to 0. So in the next line I have 1/10, and I'm subbing in my limits. So to sub in your limits, the first thing you do is you sub in 10, so you sub in your upper limit. So it became minus 10 cubed over 3 plus 5 times 10 squared. And I have that in brackets. And then I'm going to subtract and sub in my lower limit. So I subbed in my 0 instead of my x. And I have that in brackets as well. Then notice I have another set of brackets outside it because I want to multiply all of that by 1/10. Now in the next line I've plugged in everything in my two brackets into my calculator. And I ended up with 1/10 times 500 over 3. And then 1/10 by 500 over 3 is 50 over 3 meters. So I know that over the time period over the distance between 0, x is 0 and x equals 10, the average height of the ball was 50 over 3 meters. Okay, so again, I hope this video made sense. If you're unclear on any of that, then just let me know in class or send me an email and I'll try and explain it differently.